Welcome back to the program. From 1968 to 1990, then to 2004, we left the Companies and Other Matters Act largely. With a few changes among those years, but now the Nigeria's National Assembly has breathed a new life into the Companies and Other Matters Act, Nigeria's most important business law, passing new amendments to ease business for small and medium enterprises, help startups, boost investment, help the securities market, save companies from total collapse, and create jobs. Now, the making of that is what we are looking at. And let's bring in Ayodeji Ebo, who is the Managing Director at Afrinvest Securities, one of the licensed investment securities and trading firm on the market. Good morning. It's good to have you here.
Good morning.
Let's have a handshake, albeit very premature, that we have a new CAMA 24 years after. That looks like a long time.
Yes, a long time, and it is good that it's coming at this time, because when we also look at the way in terms of the structure of the business in the last 14 years or in the last 24 years, things have changed within the global economy.
The world has moved on.
So in terms of relevance, it has been a major bottleneck in terms of setting up businesses, taking businesses to other level. And
24 years.
Yes.
And we left the most important piece of business, investment and economic legislation unchanged.
But never late than
no, it's late. Yeah. 24 years. If you piggyback how much we would have lost in 24 years that we left this legislation unchanged, that would amount to mind-boggling money, isn't it?
Yes, because if you look at the way Nigerian economy is structured, the micro, small and medium scale enterprise accounts for about 50% of contributes about 50% to the GDP and accounts for over 80% of employment. You have over close to 40 million small and medium scale enterprises. So a lot of these companies have been finding it challenging in terms of structuring their business, registering their business, setting up their businesses. And with this introduction, with the new life into the CAMA law since 2004, we feel there's a lot of bottlenecks that have been addressed.
It's interesting, but again, we can browbeat ourselves about what we didn't do. So let's get down to business, because this conversation is just starting. This is our first word on it. It's going to take a whole lot of time to go over this. So let's go start it from one of the top and easy picks from this. One of this is that they now have single-member companies. What does that mean? Quickly, let's keep touching them.
Very interesting. You have to look at what was the status quo. Initially, if you want to set up your company, you need 2 or 3 directors that needs to partner with you. And that also has always been a major challenge, because you have to look for someone that aligns with your vision. You have to look for someone that is willing to partner with you. And we've seen a lot of issues that have arisen as a result of that people taking up companies or laying claims to other companies as a result of just bringing them in to be part of you to set up your company.
To register a company.
To register
let's
your
make
company.
It simple. To fill from CO2 and from CO7 and prepare your MEMAT. That's what it means.
Yes.
Yes. So you need 2, 3,
4 directors.
As directors.
Exactly.
And some folks go ahead and include their houseboys and housegirl and driver's name as directors, just because they want to register a company.
Just to complete it. But now, as an individual, you can register your company. You need not bring in any other person.
So I can register from today. According to the new CAMA review, I can have Bosun Nigeria Limited with just my name all on the document, and it's legal.
Yes, it's legal.
And it becomes a company.
Once it's signed, we believe that also it aligns with the president's agenda of ease of doing business. So we don't stage any major bottleneck.
So what we call one-man
law.
Business in Nigeria in local parlance, this is putting it into law and making it legal.
Yes, putting it into law. And you're able to, for most of the companies that are having it, have been challenged in terms of getting people to also partner with them. It's easier for them, for startup companies to
and folks
register
don't have to
their
lie
company
anymore. That's what it means.
Yes, exactly. It's very,
you don't have
very
to lie
easy
by putting ficticious names to register a company.
Yes. And that also corroborates what the vice president is also looking at. We saw in the last, I think, 3 or 4, 6 months ago, registering online. So it's really going to ease that process of registration. So it's further legislates the process of online registration of your company.
And
you don't have to travel
as well, isn't it?
Yes, that boils down to the cost, because if for some companies, if you have directors, you have to be paying sitting allowance when you want to have meetings. And some of those things that have also been introduced that would be interesting for our listeners to notice that initially you are also mandated to have annual general meetings. Now that has been waived. It's not compulsory, no longer compulsory
to have an AGM.
AGM as a small company or a startup company, it's not compulsory to have an AGM. Also, if in terms of business, if there's no transaction for a particular year, it's not compulsory to have an audit or to do your normal filings for that period. So
to file returns
also
to the
audit
government.
costs. Yes, also audit costs would also be eliminated. And in terms of the ways
you don't need to have a company secretary as well. I also saw that here.
Yes, exactly.
So you don't have to be burdened with those employment because you're a small company.
Exactly. So you are just able to focus on your company. And for companies, in terms of their turnover, if your turnover is not up to 10 million in a year, it's not compulsory
10 million naira.
And your balance sheet is not up to 5 million in a year, it's not compulsory that you have you audit your transaction for that year.
So if I have a furniture company or a carpentry company in which I just do bed, chair, and table by the roadside, which is just about ₦1 million in total value, now this is an opportunity for me to be a going concern legally, isn't it?
Yes, at least registered, known, and if you want to access credit, and you can go as an entity that's been registered, that is known, rather than just have your having your name as your company without any major form documentation before.
Or making it legal.
Yes.
No, for those in the tech sector, this is going to be music to the boys in Yaba, isn't it? Some of them who have software rights, whatever they've written, and all the plans they have, the computer village. So they can just say, well, this is just my name. I can register a company. It's a limited liability. I can approach banks for credit. I can be part of what BOI is doing, Bank of Industry, and what have you, and I'm legal.
Yes, exactly. For some of them, just on your seat, it means that you can go online, register, key in your details, and within few hours or within few days, your company can be registered. But also, we need to also be wary now that it's going to be one, like what we call in quote, one-man business, only you running your business. Corporate governance may also be watered down. And in terms of also assessing credit, if you don't have the right structure in terms of keeping, that's bookkeeping, in terms of keeping records of your transaction, the banks will not be comfortable to lend to you, even if you also have potential investors that you are also looking at joining the business. You have to keep records. That does not water down.
This is setting it up. Does not obviate the regular and extant rules on corporate governance, whether it is one-man business or a 100-man business.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move it forward and look at what this new provisions has to do in terms of when we allow small companies and one-man business, as it were, and we use the phrase very carefully here, or startups here, that makes it easy for venture capitals, angel investors to come in, isn't it?
Yes, it makes it very easy for them. It's to one, just you have limited people to meet up to decide that whether they want to accept fresh capital. When you have 2-3 directors, if in terms of the views are not aligned, and they are not comfortable with the potential capital injection, that sometimes may stall any potential capital injection.
If you look at the economic impact of the provisions of this bill, looking at ensuring more business-friendly regulation for micro, small, and medium enterprises, this is where the whole conversation about job creation comes from, isn't it?
Yes, earlier I mentioned that the small and medium scale segment accounts for over 80% of employment. And it's what we classify as the informal sector in Nigeria. A lot of companies, because of some of the major bottlenecks, have not been able to register their companies. They've not been able to see directors that will help in terms of sign up. Also, you look at the cost, because you are just starting, you just have that nice idea. But because the cost of registering, the cost of filing, some of those things put you off. But with the current
so just keep it in your room and parlor.
Yes, or you just keep running it and it's not legalized, it's not official. But now
and you don't, and most likely you're not paying tax.
And you are not paying tax. So
exactly. This is a very smart way, isn't it? This is Buhari's smart way. I'm sure Kemi Adeosun will like this. Because the more you register, then they grab you from the CAC, then your name is in the pool. Yes. At some point, they can come knocking on your door that you need to pay tax. Yeah, it's really going to hurt to revenue in that aspect. Also, something that I feel we also need to mention is the introduction of limited liability partnership, which we ab initio don't have at all. It's just like an hybrid of limited liability company and partnership. You know, partnership, for most, when you set up a partnership in terms of like the liability, like in a law firm, an accounting, a reporting accountant. Yes, if there's any major obligation of the company, also there's also recourse to you as shareholders. Or if one of your partners, there's a misconduct by any of your partners or a negligence, also affects the other partners. But with this new law, limited liability partnership, it's any misconduct, any major liability by one of the partners or negligence by one of the partners does not affect other partners within that firm. So it makes it more comfortable for you to align views, get partners in terms of setting up your companies once you know that the liability is only limited to that the company or to that particular partner that is involved in any misconduct. So every partner has got his name on the MEMAT? Yes. Yeah, so if it's a 30%, 30%, that's limited to that, and you don't take the entire company down the drain. Yes, you don't take the entire company down and the partners along with them. And just kill the business, technically speaking. Yes. Because it's a bit of a vicarious liability under business law. Because everybody carries it. Yes, and the liability is on you, which most people try to also avoid. There's also something interesting about this new law that we also need to look at. Ab initio, when you see companies, when they run into issues in terms of liquidity or insolvency, the mindset is always that we need to wind them up, fold them up, strip up their assets, and try to recover whatever cash you can as much as possible. In particular, the banks are fond of doing that. Yes, and with this new provision, this new act on insolvency. Yes, the focus is more on if you have viable companies, try to see how you can revive those companies such that even if the company is not performing, see how you can restructure if you know that there's a potential. That's not going to be good news for receiver managers. Yes, so now it's appointing administrator rather than receiver managers. This is a blue ocean, and I think I like that. Nobody likes receiver managers. They sound more like undertakers. Yes, because you see companies that have potential. Sometimes in businesses, either based on making wrong decisions, within policies, within a particular period, you may run into challenges. But it doesn't mean that in terms of business opportunities does not still exist. So if you see that you just need capital injection, we saw what happened in the banks, appointing some management to take over some of those banks to stabilize them. We saw Etisalat too, how new management tried to stabilize rather than fold all this complaint, pay up the loan, and when you look at it leads to unemployment in terms of also contribution to GDP, which we see telecoms is a major contributor to GDP. Those will be affected. So it's a welcome development that you have to look at the long-term view of those companies before you wind them up. This is what obtains in developed world, and I think that's what I see here, and that's what everyone is saying. At least in the last 24 hours when this came out, that this is what obtains globally. That you don't just bring in receiver managers as undertakers to just wrap up the company, send hundreds of staff away, government taxes shut down, supply, whatever. The whole impact on the broad economy from the other company is brought to bear on that particular company. Now you can have, as we said, administrators who can take a look at the books and prepare the company for a new direction, rather than winding it off, pay off creditors, suppliers, whatever you, and everybody go home. Yes, it's best practice, and the reason why it's taking this long, you looked at the last 14 years, a lot in terms of business strategy has changed, in terms of business environment has changed, and the law has remained the same. So bringing it to conform to best practice or what is obtainable in other countries, it's something that
even for foreign investors, they will also be happy to come in and set up businesses and partner with the company.
They'll be looking at this. They'll be looking at this. Ayodeji Ebo, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back for everyone to continue this conversation. If you've just been watching the program, we're trying to unfold the new provisions of the new Companies and Other Matters Act of Nigeria, which was left untouched since 2004. 24 years after, the 8th Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has now breathed a new life into this very important, in fact, the #1 investment and business law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ayodeji Ebo, the managing director at Afrinvest Securities, is here is bringing us up to speed on what he has read up and tried to chew overnight on this. It's just less than 24 hours, really, isn't it?
Yes.
It was past late yesterday afternoon, so we're just less than 24 hours. Angel, we're just giving this to you first here on Channels Television, trying to break it down. Let's take this to the marketplace and look at, because part of the provisions border on reduction in share capital, what you call, you can do share buyback, right. and you can do share reduction. How does it work in the marketplace, and how will it work under the new CAMA provision?
Yes, I think with the introduction of this new law, also the regulators within the capital market also need to sit down to review
the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Securities and Exchange Commission, the Nigerian Stock Exchange,
NESD.
Also CBN, because most of these companies will also open bank accounts with the bank. They also access credit with the bank. They also need to review the policy to align with this current
regulations,
yes. So that in terms of what you require to open the account, what you require to set up. Then in talking regarding the reduction of share capital, you know, for companies, when you want to register, you require about 1 million. You have to have like 1 million ordinary share capital, which yes. I think in terms of value, maybe like 10,000 based on CSC. For private company, yes. I think it's about 10,000. Then for public company, about 500,000 naira.
Yes.
You need to set up the company. But now reducing it, though not able to ascertain exactly the new minimum, but that means that in terms of the cost that you need to pay to have to set up to have your authorized share capital before you issue the shares will not be as much as what you used to have. That goes to in terms of the cost of setting up the business
and ease of
the business
setting up business.
The business. Also, in the last the whole CAMA Act for shareholders, the company cannot support in terms of gift loans for those companies to either have to buy back their shares. But now it's been more flexible, such that companies can support their shareholders to buy their shares. Though more information is required regarding that particular act.
I'm sure the lawyers
would also be able to give us more flesh on
how this will work out, because that talks about beneficial ownership, reduction in share capital, what you call financial assistance, looking at a market-friendly advancement. That's what this document, which enable shareholders and potential shareholders have access to funds, which in turn enable them to invest in such companies. So if you talk about companies listed on the stock exchange, for example, or listed companies on the NESD or over the counter, this is where these platforms will be looking at the details of this.
Yes, they would be interested in the details to see how they can also amend some of the existing laws to align with this. Because, like you know, the currently you look at the equities market is not a proper representation of even the economy. You see, most of the major sectors that contributed to the GDP are not listed. Agri contributes significantly. You have just Okomu Oil, Presco listed on the stock exchange. Telecoms contributes significantly, though we're expecting the IPO of MTN Nigeria on the stock exchange to be listed on the stock exchange, but it's not really a representative of what is really happening in the economy. So the regulators, the capital market operators will also need to sit down how they can attract these startup companies. Maybe either create a board for them that people, for individuals that have been able to set up their company, run the company maybe in the last 1 or 2 years and can demonstrate value. and people can
So we can see the emergence of our own Mark Zuckerberg, isn't it?
Exactly.
And the folks and the likes.
Yes.
And we have quite a number of them here we don't have our own Mark Zuckerberg. Well, we don't mind having one whose company is listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, or even if it's the NESE OTC, and says, well, I'm worth several millions or billions of naira because I'm a startup and I'm just wearing T-shirt.
Yes, we're really going to have a lot of them. You look at the long-term view in terms of the potential, and some of them just require little capital just to kickstart even their business.
But when they thought about how much it takes to go through CAC,
and also to get people to sign up as directors,
find the right people, yes.
Find the right people that you are not scared of people taking over your ideas.
So this is your idea. This is my my intellectual property and what have you and all of that. So I can take that to the business registration point. Yes. Perhaps with the discussion only with my wife in the other room, and then, but I, as Bosun, can go ahead and unveil as a limited liability company, and even have my patent and all of that.
Yes, you can, and you can have your patent, and you can run your business, run your idea, reduce the cost of running business. You don't have to have AGM, appoint company secretary, get auditors to audit your account. But once you are able to get out of the woods, stabilize, then you can begin to consider some of these things for you to be able to access new investors or get capital.
So perhaps this will open the door for banks to start giving credit to small and medium enterprises. Maybe.
Yes, maybe. The major problem that we know has been a concern to some of these banks is there's still a lot of structural issues. Yes, it's good you can be able to set up your business, but when you look at the cost of running the business, so when you compare it to the return, that's the potential return from that business, sometimes you are unable to service your loan.
I'm gonna give loans if I can see a very good idea. I can see the cash flow.
Yes,
and I can see the guy is young, he has age on his side, and what have you. I can look into his books, and I can just say, well, take credit.
No, they will also be considering that segment. They can try to create maybe a department to understand potential startup, understand the business, understand the cash flow, and maybe start with 1 or 2% of their shareholders fund. At least they look at their value at risk and set it aside for that, and see as they continue to understand that particular sector, understand the startups, understand the potential value, they can begin to increase the amount of allocation to that particular space.
This means that this new document passed yesterday by the National Assembly should be what banks, central bank, the SEC, everyone should be pouring over right now, this morning, as we get onto this business day.
I also feel there would have been some form of engagement with them in one place or other. It's not just going to be based on the committee that have sat on that. I think there was also a public hearing regarding this some time ago. So their input would have also be part of this. And what they just need to also sit back is looking at their current current policy. How do we need to tweak it? How do we need to align it such that the bank is not at risk, investors is not at risk, and when they are registering the company? Because you look at the requirement of even opening an account with a stockbroking firm, very cumbersome. Some of those things need to be reviewed.
Now you're speaking to what you do every day.
Yeah, some of those rules need to be reviewed, because if you have your BVN, you have your GSM that is registered, I don't think you need any utility bill. You can track the person with this, the national identification number. You have these three things. I think you should be able to open a stockbroking account. You should be able to operate an account to
You want your some reenactment in your own line of business. You're very smart. I can see how you're linking the securities market to this new CAMA, isn't it, to reduce some of the provisions as well?
Yes, I know a lot is being done concerning that. Last year, the SEC introduced the low risk accounts that if you don't require KYC, that's maximum turnover, I think about 300,000. And you don't require KYC to open the account. There's also the mid-level lower account, mid-level risk account that is about you require just your ID card. Then when you go beyond the 300,000 naira levels, then you require KYC to set up. That's a good start, but I think we need to look beyond that and consider the risk, because it's also affecting business. You have less than 4,000 CSS accounts in Nigeria. When you compare it to the total population, compare it to number of BVN accounts, compare it to the number of registered GSM accounts, about close to 80 million unique numbers, you see that we are still very far in terms of deepening the capital market, getting investors to come into the capital market.
And with this one man, this single member companies, means that I could open a brokerage firm?
No, you would also require capital. That will require capital to open a brokerage firm, because you are dealing with investors' fund. So not just is one to reduce the barrier, to increase the barrier of setting up a brokerage firm. It's not based on the number of stockbroking firms. You see, from when the post-consolidation era, we have more efficient banks. So it's not about the number. We have over 200 stockbroking firms. But if you have fewer stockbroking firms, stronger in terms of operational, in terms of ethics, in terms of integrity, that will go a long way in terms of boosting confidence in the market, in terms of attracting more investors in the market. Understanding the market, so not just having people that sell or buy the product, but understanding the product that you also sell. It's key, because you have to educate your potential investors, educate your clients to understand the risks they are taking, to understand which products they should invest in terms of the classes of financial assets that are available.
How does this entire CAMA review fit into the Buhari's administration's economic and recovery growth plan?
Yeah, it's aligned significantly with the plan, because one of the major objectives is to create jobs. And for most of these companies that have been operating on their own without registration, or because of the challenges of setting up the accounts, registering the account, some of them have not been able to grow those ideas. So if they're able to grow those ideas, they can employ more people. In terms of revenue generation, once you register, you'll be able to, the tax guys will be able to capture your account, and you'll be able to remit as appropriate. And you also look at ease of doing business. We know a major challenge will be, how do we enforce this rule? How do we enforce some of these policies? There are a lot of laws in Nigeria, but enforcement is a major challenge that for most foreign investors. You discover, looking at the Q1 2018 report on capital importation, we're only able to attract about 4% foreign direct investment. That tells a lot. Went into that hot money, short-term fund. That is very critical. So I know it's the government is doing a lot in terms of easing ease of doing business, and we saw last year that we ranked as most improved, number 10 most improved economy. We know with some of these things, if we're able to work on enforcement, the judiciary needs to play a major role in this, such that they are able to enforce this where issues arise.
In terms of financial system stability, would you expect some knock-on effects of the new CAMA on the entire FSS?
Yes, it's also going to have, in terms of changing the way they also operate, in terms of changing the way they assess credits, in terms of changing the way they register open bank accounts, is really also going to affect that. And based on what the CBN is also looking at, financial inclusion is also very key. For most of these people, they can't even have their bank account because of the requirements, because you have to first set up your company before you even have the bank account. So some of these things will ease the process of setting up the account and doing business.
Investors' confidence, improved confidence. Thank you for your first word. A bit exhaustive, but still a lot of it to expand in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
We appreciate your first word on the new Companies and Allied Matters Act. Less than 24 hours ago, and we're raising the curtain. Ayodeji Ebo, the managing director at Afrinvest Securities. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after the break. Still looking at 40 oil going forward. How do we trade the expectations of a major divestment from one of the leading integrated energy trader on our market?